O'Connell is their next head coach.
And the 2024 AP Coach of the Year is...
My third-round draft choice in 2008, Kevin O'Connell.
First and foremost, thanks, Coach, for giving us some time here today. I know you're a super busy guy. Leadership has been a big mantra for this administration, this chief. And we knew that you've kind of worked your way up in the NFL, and everywhere you've gone, you've been successful. So I just kind of wanted to get your high-level philosophy on when you come to a new team, you have a new group. What's kind of your first steps, and what do you do to kind of get your guys moving in the right direction?
First and foremost, it starts with my philosophy for myself as a leader. After years of kind of being around some really high level leadership, or whether it was in the locker room with teammates as a player, other coaches that I had, head coaches like a Bill Belichick, and then fast forward working through my career as a coach, I worked for a guy named Sean McVay, and those two guys couldn't be more different, but taught me a lot about things like authenticity, empathy, and ultimately how they were able to, in different ways, different paths, get the best out of their people. So I've put a lot of thought into what I wanted to be in my leadership role, and what I kept coming back to was servant leadership, and I think that ties greatly in with the best police officers and police departments I've ever known. They're tied to that protect and serve, which is servant leadership, whether you're a police chief or you're in your first day on the job as a brand new police officer. I think the entire way of life is protect and serve, and that's what makes the profession such a special one. So I would argue that there's a lot from servant leadership that can be applied even in totally different worlds of playing football and the team sport of professional football versus the great work you guys do and the importance of it. But I think that would be first and foremost. And then the next thing is figuring out what's going to be your non-negotiables. What are the things that are so important to you that you want to exist within the walls of your building every single day? And once you're able to figure out those things, I think you can really have some characteristics to build not only your team, but then you've got to farm your own leadership within your teams, which I know with the police department is a very important thing, as the layers of leadership work upward and they work downward all at the same time. And that's what makes a special group able to sustain at such a high level.
And we push in the police department mission, purpose.
Yep.
And for us, it's like, you want to make sure that your subordinate leaders or your team that you have built around you know the mission. Like for us, reduce gun violence, best person for the citizenry that we have, right? Like build relationships in the community, those things. What is your overarching mission? Obviously, you want to win a Super Bowl, right? Yep. Like we all want you to win a Super Bowl here in Minnesota as well. But obviously, you have something within the team, right? And like, what do you push forward with the purpose and mission with your people?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's a great thing to think about every spring. Like, I could stand up there and say, hey, Super Bowl is the mission. And they all know that. Everybody knows we sign up for trying to compete and eventually win, a world championship, a Lombardi trophy. But to me, there's got to be certain aspects and avenues that are important for us to make sure we accomplish those things. One of which is the culture in this building that we feel very strongly about. We feel like we've built something, and when I say we, that's a loose term because I really think about it as what our players have built here from a standpoint of their culture. Secondly, we've got our football philosophy, which is kind of those protocols to operate like on the grass, on the football field, much like when your officers or detectives or anybody leaves that precinct or any place that the St. Paul PD leaves from, they're going out with something, right? What are they going out? How are we going to operate? And for us in our football philosophy, we want to be all about the ball, which means we can't turn the ball over and do things to lose games before we give ourselves a chance to win it. Close games, when gotta have it moments, those critical moments where I think about a police officer and, in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes to go, that can be the difference is we know when that's coming in a football game. A police officer might not know. So you could be in that gotta have it, situation where this is going to define your whole career. And what have you done up until that moment to prepare to be ready for that moment? And that's very similar to how we prepare our team for situational football. We want to be a good, fundamentally sound team. What does that mean? Well, we got to block, we got to tackle, we got to throw, we got to catch. There's a lot of fundamentals that go into being a great police officer. I know that for sure. And I know the work that goes into it from the academy all the way through 25 years in the department of working on your craft. And then the last thing was more about our schemes and tying our schemes to how we want to play, which was we want attacking schemes with play style. And that's how we play. But then what are the schemes that, what is the department really looking for from their people to go execute the plans day in and day out? And then we tie all of those four things in with something new that we're talking about around here, because we've had a lot of success, but we had the kind of success that'll get us to where we want to ultimately get to, which is Lombardi trophies? I don't believe so. So we're talking about being championship worthy. And what does that phrase mean? Simply, whether it's in the middle of April or March when nobody's looking, are you doing things that are championship worthy? What that allows us to do as a team and a group of brothers in that locker room is hold each other accountable to, are you doing the things personally that will collectively add up to us being, a sum of great parts that has a chance to compete to be championship worthy. They carry over to, I'm sure the St. Paul Police Department of, will we be ready for our moment when it comes? The only people that can figure that out is each individual person following a chain of command, following a structure set by leadership to ultimately be, the best that you guys can be. And that's any great organization, sports, law enforcement, the business world, any great organization have to have some of these principles.
I know you talked a little bit about, which was really what I wanted to do, is like that personal development of your players.
Yep.
And I think we've really captured that with the police department is, are you getting better every day?
Yep.
It's not looking at my buddy over here, oh, he's got better calls, or he's taking this, he gets this opportunity. What have I done myself to be better today than I was yesterday? If we can be better collectively together, and we talk about winning teams and developing a culture of a winning team, and the sports analogy is awesome, and in the police department, it's the same way.
Yeah.
If I have a team that's, guys are cutting each other down behind their backs and they're doing this, and you have a team and your team's all getting along, they're functioning great, but they're the same talent, your team's beating my team every time.
Yep. First and foremost, no great organization has ever existed without great communication. And elite communication stems from obviously consistency, but also having the ability to sometimes communicate things that people don't necessarily want to hear. What is that? That's coaching. You're not doing this well enough to either make our team, or you're not doing this well enough to help our team win. We are in a bottom line wins and losses business. You are in a bottom line life or death business many times, attempting to sacrifice, in many cases, yourself for the greater good of others. There's no greater example of servant leadership than that. But I think in the absence of great communication, negativity will fill that void, whether we like it or not. And why leave it to chance? So whether it's leadership of individual teams within the department, or it's leadership at the very top, let's communicate in a way where it's open, it's honest, it's respectful, which has to be, just because you're saying something that might not be perceived as a positive doesn't mean you should say it in a disrespectful way. If you're worth anything as a coach or a leader, you should be really sinking your teeth into, how do I say it to maximize the most response in a positive way that will motivate, that will challenge, that will empower, that will ultimately energize somebody to reach their truest and highest potential. But then I think you fall back on your people, you fall back on the relationships. You mentioned it, really finding out how people are really wired. What makes them tick? What ultimately are their goals? And then as a leader, how do I tap into that while communicating the baseline levels of operational, competence is what I talk about with our players all the time. True trust is built off of communication and competence. where if you're capable of doing the job, and then you've been communicated with and to and for of the expectations, it's a simple pass-fail at that point. There's really no gray area there where, once again, negativity. Hey, that guy didn't tell me what I was supposed to do, or I wasn't trained properly, or it was his fault or her fault. That's where negativity fills those voids within organizations that ultimately now you're spending your time worrying about those things instead of the initial mission.
I think what we come up with is trust, respect, influence, communication, and care. Right? And I think if you care about your people, like to your point where you talk about, I know, so-and-so's birthday is going to be next week, or his kid's birthday, and I'm making sure I'm giving him a little latitude because his kid's got something going on or whatever. You deal with, and I'm sure that there's the C player at this level and the A+ player, like we have them the same way. So we have to get that whole collective group to move in one direction, whether they're D or A.
I tell our team at really random times, it's not always after wins or losses or when moments were highs or lows. It's okay to say, hey, I love that guy right there. I love the way that guy is as a teammate. I know that I can trust him in these moments because of the work and the relationship that we've built up and the trust that we've built up. And I know that I matter. And I think that's one thing in relationships. All of those words you said earlier, what do they really equal? They equal the intent of making people feel like they belong. Belonging is one of the, it should be the get in the door, the price of admission in great cultures, feeling like you belong to something. What that is, and ultimately the depths of care that people have for what they belong to, is to be determined by hard work, sweat equity, the ability to come together as a group. What is the leadership asking us to go accomplish, and can we go accomplish that? But the get in the door price of admission is making all of your people feel like they belong to something that matters. And then ultimately, if you've selected the right people and you've got the right folks that are in it for more than just themselves, they're in it for that locker room feel of doing something for the greater good of somebody on your right or on your left. I think really powerful things can happen, and it all circles back to relationships and trust and communication and accountability. But really the get-in price of belonging to something should elicit a really good response from your people that then you truly ultimately know, here's what I'm dealing with. How do I make this group as a whole collectively better? Well, you got to start in a good place to do it. Otherwise, you're probably going to be circling back to your selection process of who we brought in the first place. And that's no different than us via the draft, free agency. That better be a hard process. That better not be an easy process, because if it is, you probably didn't pick the right kind of people in the first place.
Hell yeah, always.